When you get to be my age, one of the things we ask of our religious faith is that it help us cope with our coming to terms with mortality, with the realization that no matter how nice a person we are, we're not going to live forever. How does religion do that? It does it by understanding that it's not really death we're afraid of. The author of the 23rd Psalm understood our souls when he wrote that unforgettable line, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." It's not the idea that we're going to die one day. It's the anticipation, the sense that our time is limited that scares us. The shadow that falls over our lives because we have the knowledge that no other living creature has, the knowledge that one day we will no longer be here. The good news is people, I have discovered, are not really afraid of dying. The British writer Chesterton once wrote a wonderful line. He said, "There are people who pray for eternal life and don't know what to do with themselves on a rainy Sunday." We don't want to live forever. We want to live just long enough to have made a difference to the world. What we fear is not mortality, not death. We're afraid of not having lived. We're afraid that we will come to the end of our lives without having had that impact on the world that we once dreamed of. How do you cope with that fear, that shadow that death casts over our years as we advance? How does religious faith help us cope with the sense we may not be around long enough? It does it, first of all, by showing us how we can live so that our lives will not be meaningless, so that we will leave our permanent impression on the world. I don't know what happens when we die. Well, some things I know. I know that when I die, my physical body will be buried, will return to the earth as once it was. But I also know that there is a part of me, I'm comfortable calling it my soul. Other people, if you're not comfortable with that word, might call it personality. Everything about me which is not physical, my memories, my values, my sense of humor, my identity, those things cannot die because they're not physical. Death has no dominion over them. That much I totally believe and understand. What I can't understand is, what does it feel like for a soul to exist without a body to incarnate it? Will I still know that I'm me? Will my disembodied soul be able to recognize other disembodied souls of people I've known and loved if I don't have eyes and optic nerves? Will I be able to feel happy to see them? I don't understand the question, let alone the answer. And so when I worry about the fact that my time is limited, I don't look for answers there. I look for answers elsewhere. The good news is, to know you have made an impact on the world, you don't have to do one great deed, write a wonderful book, find the cure for some disease. You change the world with little deeds done regularly. You remember the story from the Bible that right after God led the Israelites out of Egyptian slavery, he determined to work a miracle for them so spectacular that no one who saw it would ever doubt his power or his providence again. Do you remember what he did? He split the Red Sea, led the Israelites across on dry land, brought the waters back to cover the pursuers. It worked. It blew everybody away. Everybody who was there said, "Wow, the Lord will be my God forever." You read on in the next chapter of the book of Exodus, and you find 3 days later, these same people who were at the Red Sea are complaining about the itinerary, they're complaining about the cuisine, the accommodations. Nothing is good enough for them. What we learn is that the word forever is a technical term meaning 48 hours. Somebody promises to be grateful forever, you can hold them to it for 48 hours, and after that it's a lost cause. God realizes you cannot nourish people tomorrow on the basis of yesterday's miracle. Yesterday's miracle, no matter how wondrous it was, grows stale. And so God changes his tactics, and instead of one spectacular miracle once in a generation, God gives the Israelites the manna. Food grows outside their tent overnight, and in the morning you just go out and gather it up, bring it in, you can feed your family. Not as spectacular as splitting the Red Sea, but because it happened every day in its own small way, it changed the way people saw the world. This is what we can do. We don't have to come up with one great deed. You make the world a different place by doing nice things regularly. You want to feel good about your life? Here is a very specific, simple prescription. 3 times a week, go out of your way to do something nice for somebody. That's all it takes. You will be astonished how quickly you start feeling different about yourself. You know why this works? Very simple. I believe this is the cornerstone of my entire faith. Just as our bodies are made so that certain kinds of diets and activities are healthy for us and other kinds are toxic, I am convinced our souls are made so that certain kinds of activities make us healthy, certain other kinds are toxic for us. Haven't you had the experience of going out of your way to do something nice for somebody and you feel so good, you feel light, you feel cheerful, you feel healthy? You have discovered this is the way human beings are supposed to live. We are made in such a way that cheerfulness, honesty, generosity are literally healthy for us. Lying, selfishness, envy are literally toxic. You poison yourself when you live that way. That's why the message of all religious faiths boils down to one form or another of reaching out to other people in honesty, in generosity, and in helpfulness. Some years ago, they did a study in North Carolina at the Duke University Medical Center of type A personalities. You know, people like that. They're always hard driving, always in a rush, need to get things done, dictate letters while shaving in the morning, while watching the morning news, honk the car behind you as soon as the light turns green. Their theory was these people are going to make themselves sick because they're so intense. Well, they rounded up a couple of hundred type A personalities, they studied them, and they found out that, yes, some were sick and others were perfectly healthy. And this seems to be the key. If you are a hard-driving, ambitious type A because you enjoy the challenge of getting things done, because you find it satisfying to know that things are different because of your activity, you'll be fine. But if you are hard-driving and ambitious and always on the go because you're suspicious of everybody else, because you're convinced that the world is a jungle out there, and if you don't get that person first, he's going to get you, that's the kind of person who gets sick. Human beings were not meant to live that way. We were meant to be cooperative, to be open and sharing and honest with each other. And yet there is so much in the modern world that erodes that tendency to be honest and sharing, so much that teaches us to see the other person as a rival, as a competitor, as somebody who wants to cheat us. No wonder we're sick, and no wonder we go around thinking that our lives are meaningless and pointless and futile, because that's simply not the way human beings were meant to live. God put us on this earth to share with each other, to encourage each other, to dry the tears and hold the hands of people we know who need that kind of encouragement, and to let them do it for us when we need it. That's how you make the world different. Just as in the world of physics, there is the principle of the conservation of matter. Nothing disappears. It only changes its form. It's always there. I am totally convinced that in the world of the spirit, there is a similar principle of conservation. Nothing disappears. Every good deed you do somehow remains and leaves its mark upon the world. I have come to believe heaven and hell are not places, they're moments in time. Hell is not fire and brimstone and flames. Hell is the understanding that if I was sarcastic to my daughter when she was a little girl, she will be sarcastic to my grandchildren, and it'll be my fault. Hell is the awareness that every time I tell a lie to get out of an embarrassing situation, I have voted to make this world a more deceitful place, and I and my family have to live in this deceitful world. And heaven is not bright sunshine and harps and white clouds. Heaven is the awareness that if I worked hard for something I believed in, and I thought I was wasting my time and energy, I never waste my time and energy. Every good deed leaves its mark on the world. Everything we do, every time we take a stand for what's right, every time we go anonymously to help a neighbor, and nobody thanks us and nobody applauds us for it, we have changed the world. We can look back with satisfaction on the lives we have led. We can feel that we have cheated death. We have acquired immortality. Even if we're not famous, even if our obituaries will not appear in the newspaper, we know we have permanently made the world a different place, because several times a week we have gone out of our way to do something nice, and nobody will ever forget it. Because we have stood up for the things we believe in and voted to make the world that kind of place. If we have done this regularly, constantly, frequently, we don't have to be afraid of the valley of the shadow. We don't have to be afraid that we will disappear like a rock falling into a pond, making ripples for a moment and leaving the water the way it was, but the rock is no longer there. The world will be permanently reshaped for the better because we pass through it. And we can look at the end of days and not be afraid, for death will have no dominion.